Hey there, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me for today's explainer. You know, as an 8th grade student, you've probably read plenty of poems, and honestly, you've maybe even written a few yourself. But today, we're doing something really special. We aren't just going to read, we're going to completely lift the hood on how poetry actually works. We're going to see exactly how poets use language to grab our attention and make us feel something deeply.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today's lesson. First up, the power of words. Then, meet the core four. From there, tenor and vehicle mechanics, connecting to theme, and examples in action. And finally, we'll wrap things up with the godly learner.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the power of words, painting pictures for the heart.
So before we get all bogged down in the technical terms, I want you to understand that we aren't just memorizing boring dictionary definitions today. Not at all. We are discovering how words take abstract, totally invisible ideas and turn them into unforgettable images that your heart can actually hold on to. Listen to this beautiful verse from Proverbs 25:11. Like apples of gold in settings of silver is a word fitly spoken. God designed language to be beautiful, precise, and deeply impactful. When words are perfectly chosen and beautifully arranged, they are incredibly valuable, literally like gold and silver. And you know, that's exactly what figurative language does. It fits the absolute perfect image to the perfect thought.
Moving right along to Section 2, meet the core four. These are the tools of the poet.
Okay, so whenever you're reading a great poem, you're almost definitely seeing one of four major tools at work. These are the primary ways poets compare, exaggerate, and animate ideas, so we can feel them, not just intellectually understand them. Let's break them down. First up, we have the simile. A simile is a comparison between two totally different things. And here's the trick. It always uses the words like or as. For example, saying someone is brave as a lion. When you're reading, always keep an eye out for those key signal words, like or as. They're your instant, foolproof clue that a simile is on the page.
Next is the metaphor. Now, a metaphor also compares two things, but it's a lot bolder than a simile. It equates two things directly without using like or as. So instead of saying something is like something else, a metaphor says it literally is that thing. For instance, time is a thief. You're not saying time is like a thief, you're flat out saying time is a thief. It's just a much stronger, more direct comparison.
Our third tool is personification. This is when you give human traits, actions, or emotions to non-human things. Just imagine reading the phrase, "the storm whispered." Well, a storm obviously doesn't have a mouth, right? It can't actually whisper. But this brilliant tool breathes human life and emotion into inanimate objects. It makes the whole world of the poem feel completely alive and responsive.
And rounding out our core four is hyperbole. Guys, this is the ultimate exaggeration tool. It exaggerates details for a dramatic or comedic effect. Look, if your mom says, "I've told you 1,000,000 times to clean your room," she hasn't actually stood there counting to 1,000,000. She's using hyperbole to make a massive, absolutely unforgettable point about how often she's had to ask.
Section 3, tenor and vehicle mechanics. It's time to look under the hood.
Up until now, maybe you've just been identifying these devices, spotting a simile and moving right on. But today, I want to challenge you to really level up. We're moving from middle school identification to high school level analysis. We can do that by splitting a comparison into two working parts, the tenor and the vehicle. The tenor is the abstract idea you are trying to describe. The vehicle is the image you use to describe it. Think back to time is a thief. The tenor, the core idea, is time. The vehicle, the image, is the thief. Just like an actual car you drive, the thief physically carries the abstract idea of time directly to the reader's imagination. You have to ask yourself, what qualities of a thief, like sneaking up or taking what matters without asking, is the poet borrowing to teach us something deeper about time?
Which brings us to Section 4, connecting to theme, proving why all of this actually matters.
The absolute most crucial point here is that we don't just point out these devices to sound smart. The ultimate goal of literary analysis is to prove how these devices build the mood, tone, and theme of the poem. It's all about explaining why the poet used that specific vehicle. If you're taking notes, and you totally should be, write these 3 steps down right now. This is your foolproof process for analyzing any poem. Step 1, locate the figure of speech. Step 2, identify the tenor and the vehicle. Step 3, link the figure to the theme or tone. Trust me, if you follow these 3 steps, you will never get stuck staring at a blank page when writing an essay on poetry.
Actually, to make it even easier, I'm handing you this secret formula right here.
Whenever you need to write an analytical sentence, just fill in these blanks. By comparing the tenor to the vehicle, the poet suggests the theme or tone. Just plug in the words. This one little sentence perfectly explains what a comparison adds to the poem's deeper meaning. Keep this in your back pocket for sure.
Moving to Section 5, Examples in Action. Let's practice this together.
All right, it's time to shift into our interactive workshop. Let's apply our formula to a few specific examples so you can see exactly how a master reader thinks. Our first line is, "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul." First, we identify the parts. The tenor is hope. The vehicle is a small bird, a thing with feathers that perches. Now we link it to the theme. By borrowing the qualities of a small bird that perches quietly and can sing even in storms, the poet softens the tone. It suggests that hope is persistent, gentle, and self-sustaining. It doesn't demand a single thing from you. It just stays with you.
And check out this brilliant illustration of personification in our second example, Night wrapped the harbor in its careful arms. The tenor is night, the vehicle is a protective person with careful arms. Now, a lot of times the night is used in poetry to represent fear or the great unknown, but by giving the night careful arms, the poet completely changes the mood from fear to comfort. It signals a powerful theme of rest and safety, essentially transforming the darkness into a protective gift.
For our third example, we have, "I'm as hungry as 1,000 drums." Oh man, here we have two devices working together. We've got a simile because of the word as, and we have hyperbole with the massive exaggeration of 1,000 drums. Why do this? Well, it turns a basic physical feeling, just being hungry, into a dramatically playful, booming, totally noisy need. The tone stays light and comic, showing how the sound of the drums becomes part of the poem's very meaning.
Finally, Section 6, The Godly Learner. Wisdom and choices.
As we wrap things up today, I really want to lean in and talk about the why. Why do we work so hard to sharpen our minds? Why do we spend time analyzing poetry and studying the mechanics of language? Well, listen closely to Romans 8, 6-7. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. This is such an incredibly important truth. True life and true peace, they don't just come from being smart or getting good grades. They come from keeping our minds completely centered on the Spirit of God.
And this brings us straight to the core philosophy here at HeroesMart Academy. You see, education without morality, it can actually do harm. Just being intelligent without a moral compass only makes a person more capable of making bad choices. Knowledge and intelligence absolutely must pair with biblical morality. The goal isn't just to be a capable reader or writer. The ultimate goal is to use those sharpened skills to make God-honoring, wise choices out in the world. As you pursue academic excellence, as you learn to truly understand the power of words, always keep your mind centered on God, on truth, and on righteousness.
So I want to leave you with a really provocative challenge directly from today's homework. Can you take a bland line in something you've written and replace it with a fresh figure of speech, a metaphor, a simile, a personification that dramatically deepens its meaning? I want you to take the tools we've learned today and start creating your very own apples of gold and settings of silver. Get out there, make your words matter, and honor God with your incredible creativity. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next lesson.